Rogers, and the article I have chosen is For Her Price is Far Above Rubies, Choosing a Wife in Mansfield Park by Anita Soloway. So, Anita Soloway received her PhD in English from Columbia University and taught at the English departments of Barnard College and Queens College, City University of New York. She now teaches in the Department of Foreign Languages at Tel Aviv University. The article was published in 2014 in the 36th volume of the journal Persuasions, the Jane Austen Journal, provided by the Jane Austen Society of North America. It starts on page 80 and ends on page 88. I found this article through the online service OneSearch provided by our library, Wiggins Memorial Library, on the database EBSCOhost. Soloway contributes to the discussions of morality, wit, and the courtship and marriage themes in Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, and also the connections between it and her other books, as all of these themes are very common in all of her books. And she does this by examining what makes each female character the ideal or less than the ideal wife. She uses mainly a mythological approach, which we haven't really discussed much in class, but essentially means the sort of analyzation of universal truths, and in this case specifically the relationship between morality and wit and how important are these two. Specifically, she tries to understand the morality that Jane Austen plays with in her novel through her varied characters and where she may draw her ideas from, with some formalism to examine Austen's use of language and techniques. So although it is a relatively short article, or it felt that way when I was reading it, it felt like she could have fleshed it out maybe a little bit more. The essential thesis is that the two greatest attractive qualities and necessary qualities for a prospective wife are their wit and religious faith. So ultimately she ends up concluding that Fanny is the superior wife in both these respects. But she goes into some detail. She analyzes each of these characters in turn using Proverbs 31, each of the female characters in turn. But specifically, if you had to break it down even further, first she kind of discusses wit and intelligence with the younger female characters, and ultimately concludes that Mary and Fanny are superior in that respect. And then discusses morality in all female characters, specifically using Proverbs 21, and compares Mary and Fanny to each other, and ultimately determines that Fanny is the superior of the two. At the end, she also has a small paragraph discussing Emma and her transformation. Yes. So essentially she's trying to establish that there are conventions in discussing and analyzing Jane Austen's novels and heroines, and that even though Mansfield Park has a challenging dichotomy, Austen is still very consistent in her requirements of her heroines, and that readers and critics alike can rely on these traditional methods of analyzing and interpreting her novels to also examine Mansfield Park. So I'm going to discuss Mary and Fanny more in the next slide. Okay, so my paper discusses why Fanny is the most suitable wife for both Henry and Edmund, and so this article very much fits in that category because it ultimately determines that Fanny is superior to Mary. Because Fanny shares many characteristics with Mary, including her wit, the main characteristic that Austen implies makes her the better wife for Edmund is her morality. Because though Fanny does not often have a chance or inclination to demonstrate her own intelligence, Edmund obviously very enjoys her cleverness and their one-on-one conversations. And he is also very consistent in admiring Mary for her intelligence, and sometimes seems to very much enjoy the banter between them, despite the times that Mary puts her foot in her mouth and disparages Edmund's chosen profession and clergymen in general. So I thought it was really interesting that Soloway discussed wit and morality, because before I came to this article, I really didn't see them as similar. The way she described it was wit implies that you have a certain level of intelligence and makes conversation and time spent with that person more enjoyable, whereas morality and religious faith affects everything else from character to behavior and makes sure one's morality is strong and prominent. It provides that worldview and structure within one journeys through the world. Sorry, my dog is dreaming. And then obviously very much a focus on Proverbs 31, which I haven't even considered to use in analyzing whether Fanny was the perfect wife or not. And so that was very helpful, especially because these traditional Judeo-Christian understandings were very prominent in that society at the time, so it kind of makes sense. Yes. And so then it comes down to, again, morality is what differentiates Fanny and Mary. Morality matters much less than social acceptance to Mary, as made explicitly clear by her handling of Henry and the newly married Maria running away together. Though compared to Maria, she is stunningly compassionate and self-aware, Mary does not even compare to Fanny. While Edmund and Fanny are appalled by their sinful behavior, clearly the appropriate reaction based on those reactions of the other characters and even the narrator who is describing the scene, Mary is much more focused on how to reintroduce them into society, how to downplay this sin of theirs. This article discusses this point the most, I think, and it's very useful in my opinion, in examining this contrast between the two ladies and ultimately coming to the conclusion that Fanny is the